The last section in Unit 3 is domain and range. Very, very important concepts, which once again you're going to see from now throughout calculus. So domain. The domain is simply all the inputs. We want to list every input. And the range is simply all the outputs. So from now on, when we look at inputs, I'm going to call them the domain because it's what we're putting into the function. So over here, I have -1, 0, 2, and 5. These are all domains. And just to review, if I were to put a -1 into this function, out would come a -3. If I were to put a 0 into this function, out would come a -4. And if I put a 2 in, out would come a -3. And if I put a 5 in, out would, wait a second, there's no answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My graph ends right here at this big dot. So we would use the null set to signify that 5 is not in this domain. All right, so what am I getting at with this whole domain stuff? Well, according to this graph, the domain is the set of all inputs. So according to this graph, I'm going to look at my x values. -1, that's got an answer. -2's got an answer. -3's got an answer. -4's got an answer. -5's got an answer. -6 doesn't have an answer. So -5, and notice I used a square bracket, was the lowest thing we inputted. And we got an answer back. 0 got an answer back. 1 got an answer back. 2 got an answer back. 3 got an answer back. 4, oh, all the way up to 3. That's my domain. If I put any other number in, there wouldn't be an answer. So for example, with this question mark right here, what are other values not in the domain? So if I look here, we realize that 1, 2, 3, 4 does not give me an answer. Right? If I draw a line at x equals 4, it doesn't cross my black graph. 5, we already realized, doesn't cross my black graph. 6 doesn't cross my black graph. So anything above 3 and anything below -5, we can't put into this graph. We just won't get an answer. It's like going into McDonald's and asking for a Whopper. They're going to look at you and go, "What? We don't serve that here." It's not part of their domain. So what's the range? The range are the outputs. So if I look at this, okay, if I put a -5 in, I get this answer. If I put a -4 in, I get that answer. Put -3 in, I get that answer. Put -2 in, -1. This is my lowest point. And that's a 1, 2, 3, -4. So the lowest output is a -4. And then my highest output is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my outputs, my answers, range all the way from my lowest to my highest. That's my range. All right, so let's look at this example. Domain. Okay, remember domain are my inputs. So which are my inputs? This lovely circle here or this lovely circle here. Actually, it's not a circle, right? It's an ellipse. You have to look carefully. Notice there's only arrowheads on the end, not on this end. So that means I must have started here and progressed that way. So my input, there's only 3. And this time we're going to use bracket notation because it's not a graph. I'm allowed to put -4, 6, and 10. Those are the only things that get put into this example. And what comes out? What are my outputs? What's my range? Well, I can get a star, a heart, or a check mark. It's kind of like going to a candy machine. You input money and out comes candy. You can't go to a candy machine and try and put in a euro. Our candy machines only take American money. And you can't put in a peso, and you can't put a yen, you can't put any foreign money in there. It just comes right back out and laughs at you. And the outputs are set. You can't go to our candy machines, put in $1, and expect a head of broccoli to come out. Just not going to happen. The last thing we want to review is this a function? So you have to say to yourself, what does a function mean? The x's repeat? Is there any x up here who's double dating? Nope. -4 goes out with a star, 10 goes out with a heart, and 6 goes out with a check mark. Nobody repeats. So yes, this is a function. All right, so now we have another one to look at, example 3 here. So what is the domain here? What are my inputs? Well, again, I'm going to look at my x-axis. So I'm simply going to go along my x-axis, and I'm going to find my lowest inputted value that results in an answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, -6 doesn't give me anything. The lowest x value that gives me an answer is -5. And now I'm going to go and see my highest x value that gives me an answer. Nope, this doesn't, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 gives me an answer, and that's it. So that's my domain from -5 to 4. Okay, so what's my range? The range goes up and down. So my range is what comes out. So this is my graph, and the lowest point it hits is there, and the highest point it hits is there. So my answers range from a -1 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to a 5. So now I'm asking you, if you really understand this, can you pick a value that's not in the domain? Let's see. I'm going to go for this one right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is not an input. It doesn't have any answers. See, here the graph stops right here. There is no answer at 6. How about an answer that's not in the range? Well, let's pick that color to write with. Range. My answers range from -1 to 5, so I'm just going to pick an answer that's not between -1 and 5. How about -3? Ooh, that didn't show up very well. Put it over here, -3. No matter what you try, you're not going to get a -3 out. There is no number, no x value that crosses this -3 line down here. Okay, the last thing we want to look at is a piecewise function. So let me adjust this page here. And basically what you have are 2 domains. This domain and that domain. So we're going to graph this. Now, hey people, you got a graphing calculator. So you know what? Let's use the graphing calculator. Yeah, that's going to make things a lot easier. So I'm going to grab my graphing calculator here. I'm going to go to y equals the first equation I'm going to type in is negative. Careful, use this negative down here on the calculator, not the subtraction sign. Parentheses, x plus 2, and the parentheses, divided by 2, and I'm going to get the table. Now I'm going to take my table, now I'm going to graph it. If I put a negative 4 through 2 in, I am to use this equation. All right, so negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 results in a positive 1. Negative 3 results in a half. Negative 2 results in 0. Negative 1 results in negative a half. 0 results in negative 1. 1 results in negative 1.5. And 2 results in negative 2. Now that's it. They told me only to look up to 2, to start at negative 4, but only go up to 2. So I don't care about the rest of these because they're not asked to use this particular equation. All right, so give me a second. Let me clean this up. I'm going to come back to my graphing calculator and I'm going to put in the second equation. And that second equation is 4x minus 10. I'm going to go to my table. And this wants my table to go from 2 to 4. So I'm going to pull my table out. And now it wants me to start graphing. Okay, they don't want me to use 2 because that was used in the last, but everybody up to 4. So 3, if I go to 3, I go to 2. If I go to 4, I go to 6. All right, so my graph is going to look like this. From negative 4 all the way to 2. I'm not doing a very good line at drawing all those. That's where I go. Then from 2 to 4, I go here. But what happens in between this answer of 3? What happens between 2 and 3? Like, what about 2.5? Who does 2.5 in? 2.5 would go in this one, right? It's greater than 2 but less than 4. So my line would continue all the way down to there. And that's what my ugly graph would look like. All right, so my domains are already listed here, so I don't need to list my domain, but the question is asking me, what's my range? Well, my range here goes from my lowest value, which was negative 1, negative 2, to the highest value, which obviously there was 6. And my graph crossed every other y value. See, every y value between negative 2 and 6, this graph crosses. It's taken a long time to write all my little lines, but you can see them come up. Whoops, that wasn't a very good straight line. All right, so yes, we are going to work with piecewise functions a little more. In fact, when we're going to work with them in the next lesson. We're going to take a period to just practice them. But today's was domain and range. Okay, see you guys later.